Hi, so in this video I'm going to go through how to set up blend layers in CryEngine. So what I've done to start is I've got a brick texture off the internet, and this textural tile, and I've just set that to be 512 by 512, and I've put a spec into the alpha channel, so that's all quite standard stuff. Done the same with a ivy texture as well, so again I've got a spec in the alpha channel of that. Then I've got a normal map for the brick and a normal map for the ivy. So what I've also done is in 3ds Max I've just modelled the kind of front of a building just to have something to demonstrate this with. And what I just want to do with this is make sure that my I've put my brick texture on here so that I can see what I'm doing. And now if I just go to a unwrap modifier, then I can just kind of scale this until my bricks look the right size. So you don't need to worry about coming outside of 0 to 1, that's the whole point with the tiling texture. So I'm just going to tile this until it looks as though my bricks are about the right scale. Okay, so something like that should be okay. So now I can collapse that, and I'll just export this to CryEngine. And in CryEngine I can go and bring this in. Just place it on the right place. So I've just created an empty new level in CryEngine to show this, and what I want to do is just create a new material as well. So if I open up my material editor, new material, and let's save that in the same place. Okay, so I'll put layer or brick blend layer that. And so, yeah, another thing I should say is all of these textures, I've saved these as crytiffs into the appropriate folder. So let's just bring in that diffuse texture first of all. So objects. Okay, and I'll bring in the normal map as well. Okay, so if I just apply that to building, just so that we can see those bricks on there. And okay, the next thing I want to do is I want to enable the blend map. So what we're going to do is we're going to basically blend between there being bricks and there being ivy on the front of this building. So if I enable blend layer, then you'll get these second height, diffuse and bump maps. So I can bring in my second diffuse, which is the ivy, and second bump map, which is the bump map for the ivy. Okay. So now obviously what I need to do is tell it how and where to blend between these two things. So to do that, what I want to do is to paint some vertex alpha values in 3ds Max. So if I come back to Max, and if I right click on this object and go to object properties, then I want to turn on this vertex channel display and set it to vertex alpha. So when we turn this on, we'll be able to see what we're doing once we start painting this stuff. So then I just need to go and put a vertex paint modifier on. So vertex paint modifier, I want to make sure that this is set to the vertex alpha as well. So if you paint the vertex colour by accident, nothing will happen. So make sure you're painting the alpha value. Then I can fill the whole thing with black to start with, so you'll get these paint tools. The paint tools should be fairly self-explanatory. You know, it just kind of works the same as painting in anything else does. So I'll fill it with black. Now anything that's black or has an alpha value of black is going to show the brick. So if I export this now, if you remember before we just had the ivy on, now we'll just have the brick on. So I come back here now and start painting in a bit of white. So say you can only paint actual vertices on this. So I'm going to talk about that a bit more in a second. If I paint some of these in as white, and then again export that, now you'll see that it's starting to blend between the two in those two areas. So when you're painting an object like this, what you might find is that you don't have enough you don't kind of have enough control over this because there aren't enough vertices in this. So we might have to add a few more vertices. Okay, so for now I'm just going to tessellate this a couple of times like that, and that'll give me a load more vertices to paint. So although we've obviously added in a load of vertices into this that aren't really necessary in terms of the model, the vertex density on this is still actually fairly low. I'd certainly not add all of these ones here, so all of these could go. But these ones on the front, it's not actually a ridiculous amount of vertices in here. Again, I'd probably get rid of all of these like that, just to keep it a bit cleaner. But for now I'll just leave it like that so that this is fast, and then we can go back and put a vertex paint modifier on again. Make sure we're painting vertex alpha. I'll just fill this with black again to start from the beginning, and then get a white brush and now I should have a bit more control over painting this in. Okay, that'll do for now. Obviously I can always come back in and paint in a bit more of this whenever I want to, but that'll do for now. So let's export that again, and then we're starting to get a bit of a better result from this. So we've obviously got quite a few problems with this. One is that the tiling on this this ivy is too small, so we need to tile it up. So that's easy to do. We can just go to our material editor, find that material, and then just change this blend layer to tiling value up. So let's just increase that until the ivy looks about the right size. So maybe about there. Okay, another problem we've got is obviously these edges look just completely wrong. So what I want to do is to add an opacity map to this to show, for it to blend around the edges. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm just going to create a bit of noise basically. So if I go to Photoshop and open a new document. Make this about 2000 by 2000, and then I can just do filter. Oops, sorry, so I'll fill that with black. And do filter render clouds like that, and then I'll just resize that to be 512 by 512 and save that as cryengine3, and I'll call this one let's call this IV underscore opacity map. So save that. And then again in CryEngine, go to our material editor, and in the blending map we can bring in that opacity map like that. So now we'll get a much nicer looking result. What you'll need to do is you'll need to play with that opacity map quite a bit depending on what kind of material you have, so just experiment with them. It's just going to be a grayscale alpha map, basically black and white. So obviously, you know, this noise here seems to work quite well for this ivy, but it might not work for blending different kinds of materials together. Okay, so the final thing I'll do with this is just I'm just going to play with some of the values a little bit. So particularly this blend fall off value. In fact, one thing I can do is also tell it that the spec map is in the diffuse alphas, because that's where we put it. And then I can turn the spectral on a bit. I might have to move my time of day around a bit to see that. Okay, I'm not going to spend ages setting up my spec values for the moment. They don't exactly look great, but this isn't a tutorial about setting up those kind of values. So what I do want to do is just mess with particularly the blend fall off. So you won't really see anything happen with this blend fall off until you go below 1, and then you should, around about 1, you should see it starting to kind of soften the edges a little bit. So with something like ivy, you want to be a bit careful with this, because you'll start to get a bit of a weird look where this leaves this semi-transparent. So I want to keep that quite high, but I can probably just bring it down a little bit and it'll give me a bit more of a natural look on it. So the other thing that I can do is change the blend factor, so the lower this is, the more it's going to kind of cut away at the blend layer, and the larger it is, the more of the blend layer it's going to show. So I can probably have that quite high. Maybe like that. Okay. So that's about it really. Obviously I would want to spend a lot of time getting these materials right. That ivy is way too brightly coloured, and I could definitely do some more work on like the bricks and that kind of thing, but that's at least how you set up that blend layer. So it's a good way to break up tiling on large objects. And you know, we didn't have to use ivy either. We could have just used a sort of dirty brick texture on this, and just used that to break up this very clean brick texture here. Okay, so that's that.